I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. I am Ben Dietrich. Jordan Ridelli is on vacation, but Andrew Kuo does not take days off. Mr. Andrew Kuo, how are you today?
I'm especially good, man. It's just like extraordinary. Talking to the interns, maybe giving them less gruel. All this talk about how much people make made me think about how we overpay our overachieving interns.
You can never give someone too little gruel.
You can
It's a mathematical phenomenon. If
you can divide
take
everything
gruel
by two,
and you
still
cut
have
it in
something.
half every single day, they will get gruel forever, but always less.
Yeah, working on making their cage smaller, their lock bigger. It's a fantastic day, to be honest.
Well, I'm not sure how that works, but you could be onto something. Like if the cage is smaller, shouldn't the lock get smaller too? Or is the divergence in size more of a, is it a statement?
It's an equal and opposite reaction. The energy, the black hole of the leftover space, the energy, the cage held goes into the lock size.
In the perfect world, you would have the
perfect
interns in a cage that's actually smaller than the lock.
It would be ideal, wouldn't it? I mean, we
Yes.
could. It doesn't have to be a traditional lock like you think of in the cartoons. It could be like a computer with an intricate kind of password system to unlock that gate in order for them to get the gruel, which is like barely out of reach.
I'm kind of thinking of that viral image of the baby with the two weights on its arms, like being pinned down. That would be sort of the lock holding the interns in place so they could eat their lesser gruel.
Yeah, I heard the other day Kyrie Irving said a lock is just a construct.
Gruel
And grilling.
is an idea.
yeah. He's not shackled by your idea of gruel.
In other food news, I acquired the Birria.
All right, spill the Birria beans.
I failed twice. And when I say I failed twice, I probably failed maybe 3 or 4 times.
Oh, you're undershooting yourself.
Well, there were real efforts to get these Birria tacos from Birria-landia, which is the new taco truck that moved, I should say, they created a new taco truck that is now in Williamsburg on the corner of Metropolitan and Meeker, and phenomenally popular in Queens. So when I've made the sojourn over there, it has been packed, huge lines of people. So I've been scared off. So those are the 2 times that I really tried. But a few times I kind of like went in that direction to see what was happening and got scared off as well. So last night at 11 o'clock on a Monday, I said, this is prime time for No Line.
They are open at 11 p.m.?
Till 1.
That is amazing.
On Mondays.
How? Because they're outside?
I mean, you're allowed to serve food until any time if it's to go.
Really? I didn't know if your boy BDB had put down some shackles on that.
Oh, no. If it's delivery only or pickup only, you can sell 24/7.
Nice.
Right. So they have a taco truck, a little table in front of it. You order there, you get a receipt. They basically have 4 things on the menu. They have their Birria tacos. They have the consommé, which is like it's like a soup.
I've seen many videos of this.
So you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Then they have the molito.
Can you tell our viewers what a Birria taco is really quickly?
So I thought it was
listeners.
Yes, I thought it was goat, but I guess it can be other kinds of meat. But it's more of a stewing process. And when it's Birria tacos, they take the actual tortillas themselves and they bathe them in like the sort of oily broth, and then when they heat them up, they take on the red color of the beef broth. They are outrageously good, man. I got a couple tacos. I got the consomme. I got one of the molitos. The molito was whatever. It was fine. but I also had to bring it back to my house on foot. So, you know, like
it's
they're
walking distance from your crib?
25 minutes is walking distance, yes.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's not that close. But the tacos were fantastic. The consomme was great. Highly recommend it. It was worth it. But I was astounded that people were eating this stuff in their cars.
Yeah, it's a 5 to 15 napkin meal.
Good God. It looked like a crime scene with cilantro on my counter.
I don't even know how people do it in public. I have a lot of shame in my life, and food shame is definitely in there. It is like you're just going to town on these tacos if you're even doing it.
And when I posted about this on Twitter, Ben Solomon, friend of the pod,
King Solomon,
he said he ate it over his sink. Over his sink. A king.
King shit.
A king eating these tacos over the sink.
Yeah. He can expedite it by eating it either over the garbage or, over the receptacle where it eventually ends up anyway.
The final evolution of dining.
So this is the only weird thing that I do. The one single weird thing that I do.
Everything else is incredibly normal.
Super. So if I got like a taco with a delicious broth that's been stewing for hours and brought it home with me, I would try to stretch this out into like 4 meals. Because that broth, you can do a lot with that broth. Maybe make a soup out of it. Maybe use it to accompany something else, like a nice toasty piece of bread.
Get yourself a stew going?
A one pot, maybe, within one pot. But so I do this with noodle soup sometimes. If I'm eating a noodle soup back when we could sit down or on the street, I just try to take down the whole beast. But if I bring it home, that's 3 meals, man.
I did this sort of recently, and it was on your recommendation because the other day I picked up some of our favorite restaurant, Szechuan Mountain House. They serve a dish where it's this white fish chopped up with cucumbers and sprouts that's in this incredibly spicy broth that's floating with cut up chili peppers, Szechuan peppercorns, all types of stuff in there.
Cloves.
It's delightful dish. But I brought it home and, I heated it up and ate it. Now I have the broth left. And this was based on exactly what you were saying, based on you. So what should I do with my remaining spicy broth?
Strain it so nothing gets too funky. And then you have the broth.
I already did that.
King shit. And then either buy a piece of fish, maybe some like a sturdy white flounder, or
you're a flounder guy.
I'm not mad at flounder.
How do you feel about cod?
I love cod, but it'll disintegrate in your broth. It's too too flaky. I love cod.
What about hake?
I love hake. Hake is like a sturdier cod, right? And it's cheaper.
Hake, the sturdier cod.
I love hake. And
that's great.
Slice it up and put it in your broth with some extra veggies maybe, or you can make a noodle soup, or you can enjoy it in a mug as you are on the trade machine trying to get James Harden on your team.
Are you someone who shies away from tilapia?
Yes.
Me too.
I've been told it is awful for you. It's a trash fish, and it is like counterproductive to like eating something lovely from the ocean.
You know who my heart goes out to here, though?
Who's that?
Tilapia. Like, they're just living their life. They're like, what's up, trash fish?
But it was created by humans,
garbage.
Right?
Is it? Was it just a farmed fish from? Are they tilapia day ones?
I think it was called something else, and it's a genius marketing tool to call it tilapia because it sounded exotic. And then people are like, what is tilapia? And everyone's like, oh, it's just this regular farmed fish that has been there forever, but they started calling it tilapia a decade or so ago.
So it's the common name for nearly 100 species of chichlid fish.
Chichlid, yeah, that doesn't have the same appeal.
It just hits different when it's tilapia.
Yeah, it's like Russ in a Houston Rockets jersey.
It can be a problematic invasive species in new warm water habitats. Just garbage fish.
I mean, we want to eat those fish, but apparently I think it's like not good for us either.
No, I think there are a host of reasons why you should avoid them, but mostly because they're just trash fish.
Sort of like trash NBA teams, like my favorite trash NBA team.
The Knicks, a.k.a. Houston North, a.k.a. tilapia.
Yeah, the Knicks are the tilapia of the fish counter, for sure. It's very popular, but very bad.
They're not good for you. They're bad for the ecosystem.
It's just a bunch of branding. It's just a bunch of power forwards. The same power forwards over and over.
Many people are saying this.
It's one name for 100 different power forwards.
In other New York City news, New York Magazine, who has been pumping out lists of places that are closing and closed since, well, forever, but specifically during the COVID era, they published a list of 500 places that have closed. And I think it was just in 2020, because some of these spots, I believe, were closing anyway. But all in all, it was a heavy casualties from coronavirus in New York City, of course. I made it through about 3/4 of it, and I couldn't stomach it anymore. It was too much.
Yeah, they interviewed me for my favorite dumpling spot that just closed for that piece. And I talked to a friend of the pod, Chris Crowley, about it for like a couple of phone call sessions. And it was really melancholy, man. And I know I throw a defund whist and all that, but he was just like the simple questions like, what do you remember about it? What was good about it? Did you go a lot? Who did you take there? It was just like crushing. I was like, I took everyone I liked. I told everyone about it. I used to go there alone. It was delicious. It was cheap. Maybe once every couple of weeks I would go there, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a lot. And it sucks, man. And I was thinking about this. I walked around a lot during Thanksgiving Day in Chinatown to collect my bounty, my cornucopia of Chinatown delicacies. And I was thinking about how different the neighborhood looked. And the New York Times just did an interactive about Doyer Street going through the decades. It was incredible. Technology, man. What is it? But
what it used to be called, like Crime Alley, Murder Alley?
New Jack City, man, where they shot up the Chinese gang next to the oldest dumpling spot.
Apparently it was a place where, uptown types would come into Chinatown to get some opium and hang out and sort of live delinquently. And I think it was, Doyer Street was called literally Murder Alley or something.
It was not safe when I was growing up, and it turned into a tourist trap. But you weren't like, it wasn't suggested that you turn down Doyers at night.
Was this because of like flying dragons, ghost shadows? Was it gang stuff, or was it just kind of gnarly there because it was so like totally dead at night?
Poorly lit and dead. I mean, those Chinatown gangs kind of don't mess with you if you're not in a rival Chinatown gang. It's kind of how gangs work anyway, but especially in Chinatown, like they keep to themselves. Occasionally there will be,
strategically makes a lot of sense.
For sure. It's just like it's a mini bub, let's say.
Right, but cops don't care if you hurt your own people.
Yeah, we know that better than ever now. But I currently live in a Chinatown gang area, and for a long time, and they leave everyone alone, kind of. But you can tell where they are and where they hang out. But yeah, the piece was what shouted out to you. What spots got your goat?
I had heard about most of the big names. Right, we knew Max Fish was closing.
Is Max Fish on that list?
No, it is. Yeah.
Yep.
So we knew about those, and
it's technically not closed, but
well, you know what I'm saying. Like we've heard about a lot of the closings. I don't even know specifically what's happening with Max Fish either. I could not say, but it was on that list. But there were places like Lucky Strike, like heard about that one. The stuff that hit me were going back 20 years that I hadn't thought about. And the ping pong effect of going through that list and it just being a name of a place and the date that it was founded or broke ground, and then knowing it closed this year was overwhelming. Even though I've defunded whist a long time ago, it just bounced me from like neighborhood and relationship and apartment and part of my life so like sporadically. It was completely destabilizing. It was like, boom, here's a spot you went to in 1999 when this was your life. Boom, here's a spot in 2013 that this was completely different. Boom, here's 2003. And it was neighborhoods from like Prospect Heights to Crown Heights to like the Copacabana. And it was just so all over the place. It just was like my adulthood. And it was distilled to like name of a place, closed. Remember like shitty ass soda bar on Washington Avenue? I remember that place, closed. It was just like, it was so stark and final. I don't know. I'm still kind of shook up, dude.
I can hear it. I have a weird, annoying take. My only weird, annoying take I have in my life.
Finally.
After the whist and the destructive nature of that kind of exercise you went through, I'm just like, I try to find a way. It's like challenge, right? Like, how are you gonna? It's just a reality. How are we gonna respond? Because this seems like a very, not nebulous is the wrong word, but it's a real thing, but it's also a thing that's really based in our memory and feeling and nostalgia and all that. And you know, people's businesses are closing. Those people are hurting, and that's real. But that's where I come to the take of like, as long as the people are there, we have to wait to see what they do next. So, for example, if a place closes, like my favorite dumpling shop, I'm going to keep an eye peeled out for what this guy does or what this team does, you know, and is it just a vessel, this place, you know, like that's the only way I can keep from falling into despair.
I mean, my response was very much navel gazing in the way of, I'm remembering all these places that I haven't thought of in years through the prism of my own experience. But that's also why it had that effect on me, because I found it deeply personal despite how impersonal the list was. Like Angry Wade's, 1999. Terrible bar. Never was any good. But I was there in 1999, and I remember when it opened. I was probably there the week that it opened and went. And you're like, that was a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
And it just puts you in that place mentally, but with no details other than your own brain to fill in the rest of the entire story. And then you see the next name on the list, and it's a place you've never heard of, and someone else is doing the same thing with a place on 69th Street that they went to, 40 years ago. So, yeah, a totally self-absorbed way of looking at that list. At no point was I thinking, oh, those poor employees. Of course, that's the bigger picture, is what happens to these places and these people, and how do we replace that employment? How do we replace those options for eating, nightlife, hanging out, and bring the city back to the kind of culture that we want it to have? Of course, that's the real thing. But this list specifically, yeah, really, really nailed me with the chronological aspect to it.
Yeah, and the mental gymnastics that you go through when you read a list like this is like, when does your originalism start? It's always resetting itself. It's like, well, the city I knew, how the founders of the city framed it, me, is
exactly
is this way, and when it changes, it's heartbreaking, and it is. And there's no amount of hyperbole that tires me when people are like, well, a place is made up of things and ideas and bars and restaurants like this, and I'm like, that's true, that's hyperbolic and very true. And it got me thinking of where my originalism rebooted and how recent was that. And I think, unfortunately, all of our originalism is kind of getting rebooted now together, because this is fucked and there's no relief, and all these guys who are not making as much money as NBA players can't do shit. Like, not to be weird, our White House doesn't care about this right now. Our senators are fighting, but not really. They're fighting about the election still, which is a done deal. Like, I'm just waiting for someone to help. Anytime starting from a second ago would be nice.
I mean, America's made it pretty clear. We don't need another Dietrich rant on the subject, but America's made it clear that it's fuck you, that you're on your own. Like, that's painfully clear from both parties, Pelosi the other day, well, I don't know if we really need to give people $1,200. Not when we have a man of science like your boy Joe Biden coming into office in 2 months. Like,
but let's quit it with Pelosi because she assigned that $2 trillion. It's McConnell. Like, we're blaming the wrong one.
I mean, Pelosi literally said this. They're all to blame. They're all to blame. Some are more to blame than others, yes. But we have been deeply failed by our government. And I don't think anyone on either side of the aisle, in terms of the population, has much good to say about the government at this point. Whether you are a far right person or a far left, I think there's a wholesale dismay at what the United States government has become. Maybe we differ in what we want it to be, but overall, I don't think anyone is satisfied with what we're getting from the government.
I saw your GOAT senator on Fox last night, Rand Paul. I was like, oh, Ben's GOAT senator. I got to tune in. And he was, with no hesitation, was like, well, we can't give people more stimulus than what they make usually because it incentivizes them not to work. And I'm like, people are still saying this with a straight face. And
why should people work?
He was just like, we don't want a bunch of lazy Americans. I'm like,
why not?
I wish I could reach into the screen and strangle your favorite senator because it just like deeply offended me and deeply offended like a country I kind of quite love, and I was just so mad that he gets, and he's one of the more vocal senators in our country, and he goes on TV and says this stuff, and I'm like, I wish I could just like talk to you about this because it is deeply, deeply humiliating and offensive.
I mean, if there was any sort of veil on our country and its priorities like that, it should have been lifted a long time ago, but at least at this point it is in complete tatters. There is no cloaking what this country is as a vessel for corporate interests and on one side fascism. Like, that's all we are. There's no humanity. There are people who are good, who are within the government trying to change these things, but as an overall entity, as a behemoth, like, our government doesn't do good shit. We're a right-wing nation. Both parties basically have right-wing platforms. There are people who don't subscribe to those ideals, but that's what we are functionally. We are a vicious monster of a nation. Hopefully we can get better. Yeah, hopefully.
And, like, I don't agree with a lot of that, and I do agree with a lot of that. I just think it's more simple than that. We have morons who are in charge now, and they're doing the worst job that they can probably do. Not the worst, at least there's a vaccine coming out, right? But, like,
Which has nothing to do with the U.S. government.
At least we have this, right? And I always think that the virus has been very gracious to us in that it's predictable and we're not bleeding out of our eyes and it's not quite visible unless you show symptoms, but a lot of people don't. So it's confusing. It's almost as if the world is giving us a warning shot, a really hazardous, fucking destructive warning shot. But I'm like, imagine if we turned blue. There would be pandemonium in the streets.
The other thing that's crazy is you compare our response to countries that have gotten out of this and they have the vaccine coming. Fucking Australia. The Australians? Like, they did this right? Australia?
Well, Asia crushed it too because they had to deal with SARS. And
yeah.
Australia's
of course
close
they
to
did.
SARS.
Sure. Of course they got this down.
But Australia's close.
Australia?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many Asians in Australia.
Did you see the videos? They're having outdoor concerts, Coachellas, no masks. They're good to go. They haven't had it in months. Months. And we're here cresting. Fucking dunce nation, man.
Well, it's just because of our leaders, right? And I don't want to blame our citizens because it is confusing and scary. And I imagine the information being received in 100 different ways to 100 different people.
Look, if there was a united front of reasonable politicians from all, like, the full spectrum, we would have done such a better job. 100%. I don't blame the people. I'm saying you were right. They got their messages from a higher power. Yeah. And the fact that that a virus was politicized is just so crazy. So grim and dumb.
And that's why NBA players make 10 times the amount of money a senator does because they do a better job at their job, man. Did you read that tweet?
Yeah, so your boy, I don't even know the guy's name. I want to say he was a sports writer. He said the minimum salary. Mike Pesca. The fish. Trash fish.
I'm watching The Sopranos now, so you got me going, man. Oh, Mikey the fish.
Oh, Mikey tilapia. Hey, yeah. He says the minimum salary for a fourth-year NBA player is 10 times that of a U.S. senator. Hey.
He's a trash fish. Say that to my face. I said you're a trash fish.
This guy's a fucking trash fish.
He's an NPR contributor and basically a podcaster, I think.
Oh, yeah, Mikey the tilapia.
Mikey Flounder.
Is he more of a hake or is it a cod, like a fish that would fall apart in the broth?
Go back to your farm. Trash fish.
Invasive species or what?
It's that classic trash fish discrimination that goes way back to the turn of the century.
Anyway, this guy says, again, in a regular voice, or as close as I can come to that, a minimum salary for a fourth-year NBA player is 10 times that for a U.S. senator. Apparently, we're supposed to be upset by that.
Yeah, the reaction was swift, but it opens up a lot of the stuff I love to think about when people are like, well, if I was big as Tim Duncan, I would be Tim Duncan. I'm like, I don't think so.
This is very reminiscent of a quote that has been attributed to Babe Ruth, although it's kind of unclear if he actually said it or not. But we say that Babe Ruth said it. They said,
the streets are saying. You
make more than President, I don't know, Ulysses Grant, whoever the fuck. one of those old heads, yeah. Day ones. And Babe Ruth said, well, I had a better year than he did.
That's great.
Like, whether he said it or not, it is a Babe Ruth quote.
First tweeter,
I've always enjoyed.
He got bars. Babe Ruth, bars.
Babe Lillard. So, but that point is the exact same one that everyone made back to Mikey Tilapia, which is that, well, yeah, these guys are better at their jobs. They deserve it. Of course NBA minimums make more than senators. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah. I mean, the reaction I agreed with was just like, first, people showing like regular NBA players 360 dunking, but also being like, well, they generate money and you're a public servant. They're just two completely different things. And then as soon as you go into like Kelly Loeffler and how much money she has versus how much money LeBron James has, like, you don't go into public service to make money. It's like a total misunderstanding of what the two jobs are.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, hi, I'm trying to get rich. I'd like to be in the House of Representatives.
I know.
Well, then you're going to be corrupt and you're going to help ruin this country. Like, oh, that's what happened. Shit.
Right.
God damn it.
Right. If you're not making $1 million being a senator, then what are you doing?
If you can't be the Clintons and come away with an absolute fortune after being president, well, then you're just doing it wrong. Yeah. Like, they didn't have any fucking money.
Yeah.
Oh, suddenly they have hundreds of millions of dollars. Obama's hundreds of millions of dollars. From what? Again, being president?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh, word.
Yeah. There was a caller that kind of trolled Tucker Carlson, I think a few years ago. But, he played nice. And then he basically started, like, chipping away at him, calling him all these names. And then finally he was like, the thing that resonated with me was he said, there's no reason a news anchor should be making millions of dollars a year. And a few of you at Fox are making millions of dollars. And there's just something inherently broken about that because you're a reporter. And I thought that was funny. And I agreed with that. It's like...
Well, there's a few things that are weird here. Because one is that NBA players' salaries being public, it makes sense because the league is so econometric in terms of having a salary cap. Mm-hmm. But that's also not that common when people have their salaries just listed on Basketball Reference. Yeah. There's no like CEO reference, CFO reference.
Dude.
Like, let's go see what the, I don't know, pick a fucking company, Wegmans. Let's go see what their COO makes. And you're like, oh, well, he makes 10 times what a
Yeah.
U.S. senator does too.
Look up to the front office, man. Some guy who got born into money, who's also dancing under an overpass, is making 20 times as much as Julius Randle, maybe 250 times as much as Julius Randle. But I agree.
The owners, we know what the owners get just off of revenue because the salary cap is split. So whatever the salary cap is, it's 115 million. Cool, that's what Dolan got. And 115 million went to the owners.
And it's cool when like NBA veterans choose to retire and they're done with basketball. They can flip their contracts and profit billions of dollars off of it because they're just tired of it. Sort of like what owners do when they sell their teams. Oh, he just made $1 billion. I'm like, that sounds cool. No, a few hundred million maybe, but like it also
That's the thing. Like Josh Harris and the Sixers ownership group will make more money off of basketball than LeBron James.
Hey, they invested right, and I get how the mechanism works, but let's not like shame.
That's wrong. But that's wrong. Like
it's fucked.
It's wrong.
It's fucked. But
it's wrong.
But
it's wrong.
No rules were broken until we established those rules. So
I'm not saying rules were broken. I'm not saying it's illegal. I'm saying it is morally wrong that guys could march in with money from outside, toss it into a franchise at an opportune time, not even do a great job, but okay, they've made some good changes of late.
I think that's morally
but
neutral.
Earn more in a couple years of owning a franchise than the greatest player of all time. That's just wrong.
It's a mishandling of the equation. I think it needs to be rewritten. I think in our lifetime we will see kind of more justice there, but morally, to me, it's a bit neutral. It got me thinking about the Cardi B thing on Twitter. Have you been following this? Like weeks ago, maybe months ago, she was like, "Should I buy this $88,000 handbag?" And people were like, "What? That's very expensive." And like, it's so ugly. I can, whatever. This burlap sack is better. 50 cents, whatever, the usual take-attitude. And that got mucked up again because this week she was like, hey, I'm going to do tonight only. Whatever nonprofit or charitable organization you give money to, I'll match you, every one of you. And people got mad at her because of the handbag thing, being like, you should just give the money anyway. Why do we have to put money up for you to match it? And I was like, are we going after Cardi B now? Like, she's low-hanging fruit here, right? And, I don't want to say it, but it seems a little classist to me as code for something else, like.
Of course, and the same thing happened with Meek Mill. He bought a bottle of water, probably cost $1, from kids by the side of the street, and he handed them a $20 bill. It's like, split it up. And people, like, roasted him, like, oh, what are they supposed to do? Each get $2.75?
And it happened to Virgil, too.
But what we're seeing here is there are some things in common about who's getting picked out as...
NBA players, Cardi B, Meek Mill, Virgil Abloh.
What is it about them?
Can't put my finger on it.
Generates this
people under 30?
This specific idea that they are being selfish. That they are not showing enough gratitude.
Are people prejudiced against fashionable Americans? Like culturally gifted Americans?
I mean, it's like old rich people are not expected to give anything ever, so they don't get roasted. Is that where we're at?
I just quickly Googled it. Like Blake Shelton bought Gwen Stefani a $13 million mansion for their wedding as a present, and I'm like look towards that direction. Like that is like. Oh, you get mad at that. It's like, well, it's a wedding. I'm like, well, Cardi B is allowed to have nice things. She's a pop superstar. Like, this is what she does, man.
Like, no. Let's talk about Elfried Payton and his reluctance to donate half of his salary. We've discussed this idea that philanthropy is not a substitute for public policy, for governmental responsibility. And this falls under that same umbrella, where people are less outraged at the United States government for leaving people to just totally out to dry,
Yeah.
like screwing everybody. They're kind of okay with that. They grouse a little bit. But you know what I'm mad at? Meek Mill. Meek Mill. Should have given those kids $60 instead of 20.
Yeah. I kind of think, like, when I was young and didn't understand shit, when older people would tell me, it's just like, well, if you can't hit that free throw, what am I paying you for? And my first reaction was like, well, the pressure and criticism you receive is why they get paid the huge amounts of money they get. Because not only do they have to hit the free throw, they got to answer to your stupid ass. But then as I got older, I realized they're drastically underpaid. And they are not making enough money to deal with all that bullshit.
Again, players are getting less than they should according to market value.
I agree.
And, there is something to be said for, yes, LeBron James should be able to make as much as as much as he's worth. That there shouldn't even be a max salary cap. On the other side, though, I will say even in the NBA, this guy here, Mikey Tilapia, talking shit about guys on the minimum salary after 4 years. Well, those guys are kind of screwed too. A lot of them. They're making pretty good money for sure, but they are among the 300 best basketball players on the planet. On the planet. Out of all these people on the planet. And they're making a couple $1 million a year. In a short window of time. That's as good as it gets for them, basically. I don't know. I just have a lot of sympathy for these guys like that who just don't have job security. They have a short window for income. Yes, they're in the league for a little while, but like they could get traded anywhere. They don't have the same cachet that the stars do. There is a distinct hierarchy even within the NBA itself.
And there's a union, and the people who get here. When you said the best players in the NBA, I was thinking of players that like aren't in the NBA who I know could just play, like Chris Douglas Roberts, your boy Anthony Randolph. Like how do you not get into this union? And I'm like, oh, because it's like any other guild, right? Like you have to kind of enter this world and be supported by your peers in a governing system in order to exist in it. And these NBA players have done a lot to get here, and there's no mistakes. We may think of Rafer Alston and John Starks as anomalies, but like there are no mistakes here.
I mean, that's why I'm sort of thinking about like Zaire Smith, right? So he was drafted, lottery pick by the Sixers, got sick off of eating payday bars or some shit.
Babe Ruth.
Almost died, had a Babe Ruth. Had a Babe Ruth bars. Almost died. Came back last year, played in the G League, got hurt again before the playoffs, before the bub, and never really played more than a handful of minutes for the Sixers, was traded and then waived. So like he fits this criteria, right? Granted, he isn't a fourth-year player, but he's made a couple $1 million. That's amazing, and he's young, but he doesn't really have any job security. He got traded for and waived within a week and a half. He's not even on an NBA team right now. Like, these guys don't have it that great, all things considered. Yes, they are taken care of financially, but their job is pretty precarious.
Yeah, what is going on with Zaire Smith? I'm dying to know. Maybe Cookie should take a virtual trip down to Philly and find out what is going on with him, because he's too tantalizing and too high of a pick, who was done dirty by a candy bar named after a slugger / rapper from the 1910s. I don't know, 1920s, 30s, whatever. But I don't. There's so many NBA players. Like when Delonte West was showing, when he could still play. Remember when he was looking across the street at the arena in Dallas? And he was like, guys, I can still ball. Like, give me a call. Like, I miss my life. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's over. And I don't think he's ever going to get back in. And his life spiraled, and maybe he's getting better now. But to watch an NBA player kind of like Larry Sanders, he's like, I don't want this. And then he wanted it again, but couldn't get back in. It is a unique skill set to even get to the NBA. And for that, I think that is that should be rewarded, and they're not rewarded enough.
I just think to be that good at something that is that competitive and to have a limited window of opportunity where all these things can go wrong, to single these guys out, or to single rappers out for that matter,
Dude.
as people who are not gracious enough, not showing gratitude for their position. Like, fuck you. Yeah. Fuck you. You know, a 27-year-old who goes into hedge fund banking is making as much as Zaire Smith, so spare me.
I was trying to think of an example that would blow my own mind if someone was angry at Cardi B's curiosity about an 88K bag. And I was like, oh, just stockbrokers. That seems weirder to me.
Seriously, some doofus from Wharton or Hofstra spends a couple years, you know, in an investment bank and is making the same money as Zaire Smith and is nowhere near the 300th best in finance. Like, come on, let's be serious.
Yeah, and it just rang really hollow to me to see all this criticism of Meek and Cardi online, because like I thought we had made a little progress, but you know, baby steps, man.
Phantom Boz was going on down in
Oh,
Miami over the last week.
La Sandwicheria
they still-
report.
Very tasty. I did not go. Our friend Cat Marnell went down. Nate Freeman went down. Some of the
Our homies.
Cookies associates were down there. Hopefully we can get a Phantom Boz report from them. I know there were art shows. I know Nada had their show down there.
They had a virtual thing up here, I think.
I got an invite to something though.
It might
be
have
wrong.
been
I
at
could
a
be wrong.
location, but the whole gallery went down there. Shout out to a downtown gallery. Kathy put on Kathy, the governor or mother of Birdie the dog, a famous dog. She went down there with a bunch of rad sculptures and put something on a rooftop. It was cool.
Yeah, I thought there was an honest effort to recreate Basel, but I don't know how it really went off.
Our buddy Nate showed us showed us all on his social amazing pictures of Joe Stonecrab, who I don't know how is surviving this, because apparently they make like all their money during Basel for the year.
Really?
Apparently, like people who visit just like spend insane amounts of money on stone crabs, and they just bank off of that 1 week.
Oh yeah, you're right about Nada. I thought it was in Miami. They called it Nada Miami 2020, but it was browsing artworks on our online viewing room platform, attending virtual artist talks, and visiting in-person galleries in your local city.
Yep. Our friends did a couple in Tribeca. I went to a few of them. It felt weird. It just felt like a solution that had to happen for the time being.
And of course, we would be remiss not to mention that the Nada basketball tournament, 4 years ago, time flies, was won by Cookies Hoops.
Wow.
The reigning Nada basketball champions right here.
Yeah, you shot a fuck you 3 against Schnabel and his boys.
It's all we got. In our old age with gyms closed, all of our glory is like, a glory that's half a decade old is like pretty current.
I love that tournament especially because there was no shot clock. It was such a cool wrinkle where it's like, oh, just don't shoot. Get the lead and don't shoot.
Yeah, a few teams took advantage of that.
You Bob Cousy that you were dribbling around in circles, sitting down on the ground, dribbling back up.
It was literally how we won that.
Don't shoot. Every time a team would
posting up
shoot, I'm like, what are
repeatedly.
you doing shooting?
Posting up repeatedly and then holding the ball for extended periods of time.
Listen, the first team to score the first basket should win the game.
Oh, if we had a 3-2 lead, it was
It was over. man.
fucking curtains. Like the game's to 11, is it?
Oh, is it? No, you're open. Cut. No. Okay.
No.
No, keep on
Meanwhile,
cutting.
out of the corner of my eye, I'm just watching the clock, like tick tock, and then it's like, game's over. So we kind of talked about some basketball, and we talked about the NBA players and Mikey Tilapia, but moving along to your boy Kyrie, he's decided that he is going to avoid talking to the media all season long, And his explanation was that there's bigger priorities. I believe that was how he sort of phrased it. There's more going on in the world than he doesn't need to talk to the media. Media didn't like that.
Meanwhile, ate it up, and everyone had to write about it, right? Like, he's not gonna give someone any sound for like a few months, but they can write so much about him. Is he not the most interesting, most divisive player in the NBA?
I'm a huge Kyrie fan, of course.
Yeah.
For many reasons. Not only do I think he's a brilliantly talented player who may not be as impactful towards winning as he is at just being remarkably
delighting the fans.
Wonderful at basketball.
Yeah,
At basketball. Like,
yeah, he's a
there's
delight.
no one who's necessarily better at playing basketball than Kyrie Irving. He's arguably the best offensively. Arguably the best ball handler of all time. One of the most insane shot makers in NBA history. He's also about 6 feet tall, which
and
just
plays
adds
so
to,
low to the ground.
like,
Yeah.
he is a remarkably great player. His impact on winning is good, but does not necessarily match his skills and talents. And the fact that he is immortal in terms of size and leaping ability. Like, he can get a dunk down, but he's not some Westbrookian, elasticized, springy athlete either. Just a
He's no Frank Ntilikina.
No, who is? But Kyrie is phenomenal. And he also, of course, has a personality that lends itself to people scoffing at him. You had the little green hand turned against him when he decided to go to Brooklyn. Oh, he's toxic. He's a distraction.
You had
He's
Cleveland.
bad in the locker room. He left Cleveland, walked away from a championship team in order to have his own sort of vessel in Boston. He's made a lot of questionable choices in those regards in terms of what conventional sports journalists and fans consider to be proper behavior. Like, do you think he's gotten a bad knock, or is it justified?
I think it's a generational divide where these writers are closer to boomers and Gen Xers than Zoomers. I think all Zoomers can understand where Kyrie's coming from, and I think that vibe will kind of take over sports media. I think it's deserved under the canon of what we usually talk about, Jordan originalism, staying with one team, like wanting it more. And I think on a personal human level, he's never been like quite wrong to me. Even I loved him for the flat earth thing. Like, that's interesting to me. I think he's wrong, but it doesn't make me mad that he's wrong.
I don't even think Kyrie was wrong about that.
I mean,
he never really said that the earth is flat. He was using it as a metaphor for questioning authority, questioning what you learn. Again, trolly, but funny. But he never said, I think the earth is flat.
Yeah, and his explanation of it was kind of annoying, being like, I was just testing you guys and you guys failed, whatever. I love his whole...
Of course it was annoying, yeah.
I love his Christmas as a construct thing. I love his there's more to basketball. I love him sitting out the bub being like, this ain't the time. Right, because it's not a real playoffs, and I can't wait to see if Anthony Davis will win his first championship in LA.
In some ways, Kyrie reminds me of Allen Iverson.
Sure.
Not only are they small, sort of combo guards who are scorers and distributors who are incredibly gifted, both the best ball handler of their generation. So there are very visible physical attributes that lend themselves to comparison. But in the same way that Iverson represented blackness and hip hop culture in a way that kind of graded older generations like very in a very pronounced way. Like, older generations just despised Allen Iverson and many of the things he stood for. I think we see that with Kyrie as like a Zoomer or younger millennial, but also from an emotional standpoint and from a psychological standpoint versus it being as visual as AI. Well, look at him and his tattoos and his armband and his braids, and this is what he represents. Kyrie represents something different, but it's almost more mental.
Yeah. I think Allen Iverson, the first player in the NBA, aka the logo, I think a lot of players like Kyrie and even Kobe, and you saw that footage of him and Dwayne Wade after Kobe's death. I think a lot of players look to Allen Iverson with such respect because he had to go through so much bullshit, starting with that bowling alley incident in high school and him being maligned as a recruit, all the way up to just fans dogging him for like reasons we wouldn't do anymore. And I think Kyrie seems like someone who is aware of that and aware of his place in NBA history and is still responding to it, being like, you guys did all of us so dirty, like I owe you nothing. I've given you everything and I owe you nothing.
I think a lot of it comes down to comfort level. Like, are you okay with people saying bad shit about you on Twitter? Are you okay with journalists talking shit? Are these within your comfort zone or are they not? And I think that is why certain players do certain things. LeBron James was clearly not that comfortable being the bad guy when he went from Cleveland the first time to Miami. He tried to lean into sort of, the black cowboy hat when the Heatles were first coming out. But I don't think that was him. He would not have gone back to Cleveland if he was comfortable being the bad guy. He went back there to redeem himself because he didn't want to be the guy who was hated. And I think certain players are more okay with it than others.
But it keeps on shifting, right? Because then him going to LA becomes a bad guy again. Like, it's
But
awesome
weirdly,
how he
he
keeps
didn't because he went and paid his penance to Cleveland by coming back and winning them a championship, which then made it okay to leave.
It's clear that LeBron still has that Heat culture in his heart, driving around in Lambos,
A day one.
He's a day one, always a day one, forever. But Kyrie and LeBron were connected again this week because months ago Kyrie gave that interview where he's like, finally I can pass to someone on the court, meaning Kevin Durant, who I trust shooting the ball as much as I trust myself. And then LeBron came out yesterday and was like, or maybe a couple days ago, and was like, that hurt my feelings, man. As it should. LeBron, no lies anywhere, right? I think LeBron James is probably the best teammate anyone has ever played with in the history of sports. But I get what Kyrie's doing. I mean, before I get into your take, what do you think of that?
This kind of goes to what we were saying with LeBron, saying that hurt. Because LeBron is at this point where he's so great that he doesn't even need to say, fuck Kyrie. I led that guy to a championship and this is what he does.
Yeah.
He can sit here and be like,
yep,
as a grown man, that hurt. I thought we had buried the hatchet. He left, not me. We won a championship together. Yeah, him saying that he didn't trust me on the court. Yeah, that stung. He has a level of accomplishment and expertise that allows you to be that genuine and allows you to be publicly sensitive in a way that you can't really get roasted for it. And then the next time you see you're in that Porsche giving that hang 10 as you zip off towards New York City 2024 signing with the Knicks.
Yes. And I love all of this because, obviously what you said is true. He has afforded himself the space to present vulnerability, and that just adds to his story. But I really love Kyrie here because I read it as him just sticking up for his current teammate. He's trying to gas up Kevin Durant. And Kyrie, if not anything, is someone who lives in the immediate moment, to the second.
Much like Michael Jordan.
Exactly. Right. He's Jordan-esque. Maybe he's an originalist. I don't know.
He's very present.
Yeah. And he loves to shit on his old teammates, especially Scottie Pippen.
That is Jordan-esque.
Scottie Pippen's is getting shat on by everybody. But I did see his Architectural Digest walkthrough of his house, and it's not a place of joy, let me tell you that. But anyway, Kyrie Irving, I love him because his sound bites are predictable, but they're unusual in the context of what players usually say and the way they're probably trained by their PR people to act. But Kyrie Irving lives in the moment, and I read that as him just being like, I'm looking forward to playing with Kevin Durant, and he's awesome, and he's the best of all time. Whatever, I'm out.
I think that's accurate. I will say my one anecdote about Kyrie. I've shared this before, but I was doing nightlife coverage during All-Star Weekend while it was in New York City, coinciding with Fashion Week, and there was a Beats by Dre party at Avenue, and LeBron was there in one banquette in the back. John Wall was there. Colin Kaepernick was there. A few other people. I forget exactly, but Kyrie was there, kind of near the entrance with some friends. They had a little VIP area with some bottles and stuff, and I was bouncing around from event to event, getting quotes from players.
Is that LeBron on his Lambo?
Hang 10. And I just came up to Kyrie, and I was just like, "Hey, I'm from the New York Times. Can I just get a quick quote or two about All-Star Weekend?" And he's like, "Nah, man, nah. Come on, you know better than this." I'm like, "I don't."
Do I?
He's like, "No, give me your phone, and I'll put in the number of my PR representative with the Cleveland Cavaliers. You can hit him up, and then you can set it up properly." I'm like, "It's party coverage, my guy." But he was a prick, like absolutely a trolly prick, which you are entitled to be. He doesn't have to talk to me. I don't care. I didn't take it personally. But, you don't want to talk to a reporter at a party? I get it, but like he was definitely dickish about it.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. And he is a dick, right? Like, he can be someone we really enjoy and support, and also a dick. And I he's just so guarded. Something happened at like Duke or something where he's just. I think it's the experience of Allen Iverson and players before him, and Colin Kaepernick, the guy in the room, where he's just like, "No, this is so fucked. I'm not into this part of it."
And one last thing about that comparison is that when you see clips of high school players, especially guards, like whether they're boys or girls, like I'm talking both genders, just younger kids who are coming out of high school and how they play ball, it's Kyrie all day. It's not even really Steph Curry, it's Kyrie. Because Seth and Steph, but Steph's gift is so unique that it's hard to play like Steph Curry unless you just happen to be a completely abnormal shooter. You know, you can't just say, I'm going to shoot from NBA range and be good at it. We saw the ball kids doing that coming up. They can't shoot for shit. They all tried to do it. You can't just shoot like Steph. But you can learn to dribble a bit like Kyrie. And you see it. The DNA is there when you're looking at kids now in their teens who are coming out of high school. You see it in the handle. It's not just the AI crossover. It's the Kyrie bounce. It's completely visible. Like, he is the young person's basketball player.
As a counterpoint to that, what about the idea of the 3-point shot being more influential in in terms of Steph than Kyrie's dribbling? Because the 3-point shot is almost like a gambling psychology. It's like I'm going to hit the next one. Give me another. And when you hit 1 out of 20, it's like a different feeling than dribbling excellently by yourself, or there's no release valve to dribbling. So I feel like the way Steph plays is, to me, the most important, most influential basketball action of the last 10 years.
Yeah, see, I don't see it that way at all. I just don't. I mean, I think you will obviously have players who are good shooters become comfortable off the dribble from, further distances out. I think that's the legacy to me of Steph, is shooting off the dribble and like real distances.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't view him as a step back guy at all.
But people take that from people love to mimic that part of his game.
He's not a step back guy though.
But he has hit them, and people love to mimic that.
To me, I mean, I'm just saying visibly. Like, I think the step back is Harden. I think it's Doncic. Like, the deep ass three, that's Curry. Off the bounce is Curry. I don't view the step back as his thing. Like, the side step, yes. Like, up fake, bounce, quick move to the left. But
he does it all. He does them all.
I mean, he is the better shooter than all these guys.
Yeah.
But I also don't think that it's kind of what you just hit on, but it's the reverse, where it's so much easier to practice dribbling by yourself with a ball and learn those moves and have a basketball with you on a junky court, in a driveway, whatever, and to learn those things than it is to try Steph threes, because you need a huge fucking court and you need space, and then you got to go run after the ball after you miss it.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to get up. Like, I've done this over at the courts around here. It's hard to get up like 100 NBA threes. You got to go chase the shit.
Back when I was a young man, I only liked shooting. And because it was the most fun, because there was a result, yes or no, yes or no. With dribbling, I'm just like, there is no yes and there is no no. This is endless. So it was less interesting to me personally. But yeah, I mean, who knows? Like, I think both these guys are of paramount influence to players coming up. And like, we dream less of dunking than we do crossing someone over and bombing, right?
I mean, there was a point when I just dreamed of dunking all the time.
But that was like 25 years ago. Right?
Long ago.
I mean, I think we've reached maybe butted up against the ceiling with dunking with Vince Carter, and we've been trying to push it past it. But the way Steph played was when he came out and started balling out with Steve Kerr, I thought was a big revelation for the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion on Steph is kind of all over the place. Like, I think he is the greatest shooter of all time. I also think that he came along at the precise right moment when his skill and his multiple skills would be rewarded the most, as opposed to someone like Allen Iverson, who kind of came along at the wrong time for his skills to be rewarded. And we view them each as a product of their era, which they are, but they also got very lucky. You know, if Steph had those same shooting gifts, he would not have put up 10 threes a game in 2001. He just would not have. He would have put up about 6. He might have been viewed as a specialist. They would have put him off the ball. Like, he could not have existed in the form that we knew of him because, like...
He didn't exist with Mark Jackson.
That's what I mean. Like, yeah. But even imagine that 5 years prior, he just would not have been allowed to do what he did in the context of NBA basketball, even if he could have done it. Like, it's weird how that stuff works.
Yeah, and you look at a player like future Sixers legend James Harden, like hitting on something at the right time with the right people. And, you know, Daryl Morey came out and said Iverson would have been a beast today, correctly. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there are certain players who hit at the right time. And do you think Daryl Morey is going to hit at the right time with James Harden? There's grumblings down in Philly. The cheesesteaks are talking. They're whispering.
Well, one last point before we go on to this topic, which is a great topic, and it involves the Sixers, so I'm very excited for that. Was it, just for an example, like Larry Bird, whose birthday it was, I think he turned 110 years old yesterday.
Nice.
You know, in 1985, when he was scoring 29 points a game, you know, he might have won MVP that season. I forget exactly when he won it, but, you know, he was an absolute superstar. He took 1.6 three-pointers a game.
Yeah, he'd be a different player now.
1.6.
Would he be?
And
as
that's
good
all I
as
mean.
Joe
Is like,
Ingles?
you could put Steph back there. Steph would have taken like 4. You know, he just wouldn't have taken what he did. So I think Steph is the greatest shooter of all time. He just also happened to coincide with the three-point like revolution, and of course helped drive that himself. But that's how those things work.
Yeah, there's no way to get around the era conversation other than to like theorize and just take the data we have. Like, Steph influenced his own to his own benefit, and that's just what happened. He's incredible.
Yeah, when the New York Times calls him, you know, oh, he's the basketball player of the decade, I find that kind of sus.
That's
because
LeBron, right?
I agree. But I would even say Harden if you're going to try to make someone emblematic of a decade. Because Steph was a freak. He just happened to be able to shoot better than anyone else when threes were prioritized. This is not diminishing his greatness at all.
Yeah.
But he just, to me, was someone who would have been an incredible player at any time, but became supernatural due to changes in the league that were going to happen anyway.
And optically, he's just a joy. And it was a wonder to see him ball out for half a decade.
Man, this conversation's making me excited to watch Steph play.
Oh my God, man, he's back. Yeah, I'm excited, man. Let's talk about actual basketball coming up. Are the Sixers gonna have a big three? And I'm not talking about Tyrese Maxey. Is that his first name?
So you're saying a big three of Simmons,
Thibault.
Embiid, and Danny Green.
That's a lot of rings over there.
A lot of rings. So James Harden was supposed to return to Houston and to practice, and his team and his teammates and the Frittata man, Egg King. And he didn't. No one knew where he was until footage popped up of him, I believe, in Las Vegas.
With the Artist of the Year. Little baby.
Oh, I thought it was J.J. Cale.
Oh, interesting. The world's Artist of the Year, not the Bub Artist of the Year.
Yes, right. So Harden's priorities, to me, seem fine.
Oh, yeah, fuck it.
Well, yeah, he was in Vegas partying during a pandemic with Lil Baby. What would you do?
Yeah. He's dancing in a club.
I love James Harden.
I know, lamping with like a Balenciaga coat that was kind of stuck in my mind.
Did you like their video game? Following the footsteps of Kalina Estrada.
Yeah, but it's more serious, right? It's kind of streamlined.
I hear it's less playable.
Sort of like James Harden. Playing with that Balenciaga game is sort of like playing with James Harden on the court.
You mean like the armor?
It's
The Balenciaga leggings, I believe, are armor.
What do you mean by armor?
Like literally armor.
Oh, like is it metal?
It looks like metal and it looks like armor. Like actual medieval armor.
I'm down for that. Has there been a rapper?
Please start wearing it.
Yeah.
Are those Knicks shorts with armor beneath them?
Okay.
And wallabies?
Wallabies with no socks, a white tee, and armored shorts with a Knicks logo? Which is not goth, right?
Frankly, hard.
Yo, those shorts are hard. I'm like, you're telling me.
Frankly, that's hard as shit.
Yeah. Has there been a rapper to adopt the medieval armor sword thing? Gravediggers, kind of?
I mean, we know of our friend who raps as like Sir something.
Right. Jeremy?
Yeah.
I forgot his rap name. But he's
Sir,
a medieval...
Sir something, yes.
Yeah. But has Cameron ever showed up in armor? I mean, Kanye had that mesh face thing, which was Balenciaga as well, right?
Balenciaga or Margiela, I forget.
Margiela, you're right. Yeah.
But, well, I mean, we did see G-Unit clothing really emphasizing bulletproof materials. So I guess it's possible that
That is a
armor is
kind
right
of
around the
armor.
corner. It's body armor.
Yeah, but so is a airtight drip. That's its own form of armor. No
right,
matter
I
how
think-
soft.
I think we're losing the thread.
All right. Let's go.
So James Harden is clearly making himself persona non grata down in the H-Town.
Toad. Yeah, man. He does not want it enough. He is not the first to the gym and not the last to leave.
So he's apparently added Philadelphia to his list of teams where he would consider playing.
Wow.
Which is all a very bizarre premise anyway. He's got 2 years left on his contract. He's going to go wherever he wants. Excuse me. He's going to go wherever he gets sent. He can't refuse to report to the Vancouver Grizzlies. Like, sorry, dude.
Yeah, no
That's where
trades
you-
don't really exist anymore. But vibe-wise, if you were the Grizz, would you want a disgruntled Harden for like all of your young players?
No, because you assume he'll leave in 2 years. So if he gives his kind of nod of approval to a team like Brooklyn or Philadelphia, then your assumption is, well, you know, he might not opt out after 2 years. And if he does, then we'll be able to bring him back. All this stuff is all very speculative anyway. I mean, but now we're seeing the discussion again. Would the Sixers give up Ben Simmons for him? Personally speaking, I could be wrong. If the Sixers were willing to give up Ben Simmons for James Harden, it would have happened 2 weeks ago.
I believe that. Yeah.
The idea that Harden's worth more than Simmons right now strikes me as inaccurate.
Yeah, we talked about this in a vacuum. I would really hesitate to give up Ben Simmons because of age, because of a new relationship. Maybe Morey unlocks him.
I think it's just age and 5 years under contract at like 25 to 30 million versus a guy who's making 45 who can opt out in 2 and is already in his early 30s. Like, to me, just value wise, it just does not make sense to me.
And also, James Harden is an offensive genius. Top 3 in MVP for the next 3 years. But in my opinion, Ben Simmons is the best defender in the league. Coupled with all the contract stuff and his age, I'd really hesitate to deal him for James Harden. You want to get them together. That's the goal.
Yeah. I think you could make an argument and say Joel Embiid and James Harden gives us the inside track on a title this year.
Maybe.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure. But it's like, how much better is that team than Simmons and Embiid? Not that much.
I agree.
How much better are they for the next 5 to 10 years? Like,
the
well,
same
then that's a different discussion.
Right. I try to get those 3 together. That's the goal, because I don't think Harden wants to go to Philly to be with his old dude Morey. I think he wants to join Ben and Joe. And oddly, I think the Sixers have enough to get Harden without dealing Ben and Joe. It would be a king's ransom, but they have that.
It's going to be tough.
It's tough. It's a third team would have to be involved, and I believe Tyrese Maxey has to get dealt before he steps on any preseason court, because the minute they see what he is, his value dips. You're
out on Maxey.
No, it's just psychology. It's like, I want that pick, and then when the pick is realized, like, the pick turned into this player, like, well, I don't want it anymore. I'm like, the idea of Maxey now as a concept is more valuable than him as an actual player for a time being. I love Maxey.
I think there's truth to that. And one thing that let's give Morey credit for was that by turning Josh Richardson into Seth Curry, that turned a guy who with an opt-out after the next year into someone on a reasonable contract for 3 years. We saw what Joe Harris made. We saw what Bertans made. All of a sudden, Seth Curry, one of the best shooters in the NBA as well, making $8 million a year for the next 3? Like, whoa, that's a steal. That is valuable. And then you look at Maxey, who people believe dropped in the draft and is better than the 21st player. Maybe teams had different needs along the way, but that he probably should have gone higher.
Yeah,
so
14, 15,
you look
16.
at Josh Richardson in the 21 pick and what the interest would be in that versus Maxey and Seth Curry as trade pieces potentially. That's a nice little bounce.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so if you're talking about trading for Harden, no one seems to mention Curry in this because they know he's such a good fit with the Sixers. But if you were like Maxey and Seth Curry and Thibault and Shake and Tobias and picks, like, Philly could conceivably cobble together a reasonable offer. I think it's challenging, but I think you could get closer and closer to something that Houston might say, it's a bit of a poo-poo platter, but there's a lot of tasty things in there.
And Maxey has star potential, for sure. He's the type of player with that ceiling. I'm
not saying I would take this if I was Houston, but I am saying if it came down to no one will give us shit for Harden because they're afraid he'll leave. Philly's one of the few places that we don't mind sending him, theoretically. He's out of the conference. Like, we don't want him to be able to just bully us into going to Brooklyn. We don't want to create a super team with KD and Kyrie. With Ben and Joe is a little bit more palatable. Maybe.
And the baked egg casserole dish has a relationship with Morey still, so
you don't know if it's good or bad, but he has a relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I sometimes I see him on TV and they ask him about it on like MSNBC or something, and he's just like, I love Daryl Morey, I love James Harden. He says the right stuff, so he's not outwardly persnickety or angry.
And, well, we do know for sure that the guy running the Houston Rockets general manager. Like their front office is being run by Daryl Morey's former underling.
Yeah.
So they certainly have a relationship for sure
Yeah.
that would almost unequivocally be positive.
I mean, I want Harden to stink up the joint, sort of the same way Russell Westbrook stinks up his own personal growth by showing up to practice 2 hours early for no reason. Like, he could be watching TV, writing a poem, working on his bars, but instead he's just doing a one-directional life choice.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for Jimmy Butler, but why is he showing up at the gym at 3 a.m? Like, doesn't he have friends?
Yeah, doesn't he have The Crown is on? He can rewatch The Sopranos. Like, I used to think people got smarter by traveling. I'm not so sure about that, but now that we can't travel, I feel that way. I certainly don't think people get smarter by showing up to do what you do 2 hours early. Come on now.
I just think it shows a real lack of imagination. Like, you're not talented enough to just go out there and be good at basketball. You have to show up at 3 a.m. and lift weights. Like,
Insecure a little bit, huh?
do you lack confidence in your abilities? Look at the God, the logo, the founder of the NBA, Allen Iverson. He didn't need to practice. He didn't need to work out, and he was still the GOAT. Are you that bad at this sport that you have to dedicate all of your non-game time to, like, pumping iron and hucking up jumpers? Have a little self-respect.
Do those 2 hours showing up early to Washington Wizards practices get you to Lil Baby's party?
You could have been eating Birria tacos.
In your car, over the sink. You could have been doing any of those things instead of practicing, which you're going to do anyway in 2 hours.
Yeah, you could have been mourning the closings of 500 New York City establishments, but you were, I don't know, doing reps.
Eyeball an $88,000 bag for once.
Yeah, seriously, you're in there horsing around with a medicine ball? Grow up.
Yeah, go hang out in body armor.
Like Quo.
Like me, who is so well-rounded. Look at me. I'm wearing body armor.
Like, buy a book and don't read it or something, you know? Be productive. Purchase it, put it on your shelf. Don't open it.
Can the guiding voice of Joel Embiid tell his young protege, Tyrese Maxey, to chill on the practicing and to enjoy a fine Knicks sandwich? Maybe some roast pork with broccoli rabe.
Seriously, the boomer is salivating over Maxey's work ethic. I'm like, this is a red flag.
Yes, this is not cool. What was he?
He has shit going on.
Did he post a video of him working out to Logic and everyone's like, oh no?
No. Oh, wait, no. Was it him?
Was he the one jamming out to Logic? I think so. Yeah, you're in big trouble if true. If the streets are.
You might be right. You might be right. It could have been Tyrese Maxey working out at 3 a.m. to Logic.
That's a bad sign, dude. That's a bad sign.
Deal him.
Yeah.
I mean, wave him if possible. We have ourselves a locker room cancer.
Feed him.
Imagine if Ben Simmons is suddenly listening to Logic.
Oh no, that's a bad sign.
Fucking
man.
Crazy.
No.
Crazy.
Yeah.
You can't have that kind of presence in your locker room.
Yo, if
bring
Obi
in
Toppin
someone straight from
showed up, yeah. If Obi Toppin zoomed past a car in a Lambo blasting Chance the Rapper, I'd be like, we fucked up. We fucked up, man. Rebuilding is not going well.
Bring in someone directly from Vegas. Like, they have to have been with Lil Baby within the last 24 hours. Get them into this locker room. Bring whatever sort of viral agents are with them. I don't care. We need to get this Logic coronavirus out of the Sixers locker room.
Yo, man, if Quickly is jamming out to Kid Cudi, is his value going to get any higher?
It does make me wonder if Tobias Harris has been polluted by J. Cole. There's something there.
There is something there.
He feels like a J. Cole guy.
I do not understand J. Cole, man. Like,
no features.
Have you ever been a J. Cole fan in your life?
I couldn't name a song he made.
I can't either. What the hell?
Like, literally, I can't make one. I can't name one. Not one.
Yeah,
I do not know. I would not recognize his voice.
Yeah, man. And He's even had documentaries on premium cable with him looking wistfully out, like sort of like Lil Baby's album cover, like sitting on a rooftop, just feet dangling. What's gonna happen in your life? I don't know.
I've met him. I've talked with him.
Like, talk to my PR agent is what you said to him. It's like, you got to contact my editor, man. You can't just roll up like this, Jay.
No, I was at a party and someone introduced him to me, and I didn't know who he was.
I mean,
I had a big time.
He definitely has a
he
Tyler Johnson energy, right?
Honestly, no. He was really nice. He was a super nice guy.
This is what I hear about him. He's a very lovely dude.
Yeah, Tyler Johnson has chaotic good energy, I guess.
Yeah. Well, they both look like they just ate like a tuna fish salad sandwich.
No, Tyler Johnson's rugged. J. Cole just came off as like a really nice dude.
I know. Yeah.
Tyler Johnson, I could see him opening beer bottles with like his teeth. I don't see that out of J. Cole.
I could see Tyler Johnson eating like a ham, egg, and cheese on the corner of a bodega, drinking a tropical paradise or something.
Yeah, I don't really see that from J. Cole unless it was premeditated.
Right, unless it was a move, like my armored shorts. Oh, it's such a move. I'm like, what are you talking about? Clank, clank, clank. Hort.
You know what? We've done it. Let's get out of here.
All right.
We've done it. We've created yet another perfect pod.
Cookies.
And on that comment about armored pants, we're out. Cookies.
I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.